Welcome back into the 2022 Top Post Countdown. I'm looking forward to this one. Casey Roddick is number 6 on the list. I actually had him number 1 on my list. We'll get into that a little bit. He's now, William, 6 years removed from high school. He gray-shirted, red-shirted, eligibility didn't count in 2020, and he's still got 2 years of eligibility remaining. So it's just crazy. He's going to be an old man by the time he finishes up at CU, but he looked great this spring, and I went out on a limb, put him number 1. I totally get why you had him 6, Brian had him 11. He's got to prove it on the field, but this list is about predicting, and I predict Casey Roddick is an all-conference player in 2022.
Well, and I'll take it one step further, and I will say I will guarantee you he's the most likely to get drafted player on this team right now because he has everything. I mean, I said this before and people mocked it, but he has Andre Giroud body type and talent. Don't know that he'll be a first round pick or play 12 years and be all pro, but he is a phenomenal talent. And I think people don't take into account that last year, I don't know how serious his heart condition was, but I'm under the impression that it was really darn serious to the extent of almost life-threatening.
It was serious enough to where he was sedentary for 7 months. He couldn't lift or run. He didn't get cleared until right before camp. And he wasn't great last year. No one on that offensive line was great last year, but he was at least solid for the most part when you kind of compare him to other guys up front.
I mean, the guy couldn't work out. He couldn't lift. He couldn't run. He wasn't in shape. And yet he still got out there and did a pretty credible job against a P5 schedule. And now, this year when he's finally fully healthy and again is going to have the full year with Foreman and be in good shape and a full year with Devan, there's question marks, I think, about Devan, particularly with regards to tackles, but there's no question marks in my mind about him with centers and guards because that's what he played in the NFL and he knows what he's talking about. So I'm very excited to see what Devan can do with Rodic as well. But I'll let you in on a secret. When I was making my list, I thought about putting him at number 1. I thought about putting Tommy Brown up there at number 1, but then I thought, well, people just say I'm playing favorites for the offensive linemen.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's still 325 at least. That's what he was listed at last year. That's what he's listed at now. But I'd like to see a before and after because having the ability to get back in the weight room, unlike last offseason, he just looks like a completely different player. He looks like an NFL player today. Now, again, he's got to go out there and prove it on game day. But with him, I think it's worth debating too. What did you think about him staying at right guard? I think maybe we thought he could potentially move to center. He's kind of an emergency option there. He did when you looked out at the spring showcase, he was one of the 5 guys doing snaps, but it looks like going to stay at right guard. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think if you've got him and Tommy Brown as your 2 guards, you're pretty darn solid. And I've always felt as a coach, it's hard to find a center. And if you have 2 really good guards, you can help out a less than great center a lot more than if you have a great center and 1 bad guard. That's harder to camouflage because you're generally going to have somebody right over those guards. So I don't mind at all. There's a lot of bodies that Devan can work with to fill that center spot. Nobody has stepped up and taken that spot yet. We'll see what happens in summer and fall, but I don't have a problem at all. I think one of the things that's going to appeal to the NFL with Casey Roddick is that he can play all 3 of those inside spots. And frankly, in a pinch, he's got such great arm length. He could play tackle for you as an emergency guy. You would never start him out there. But he's one of those guys that can fit in at every position. He could certainly be a center. Like Giroud played guard almost exclusively at CU and then was primarily a center for the Dallas Cowboys for a decade. So I could see him there. And you know what? Guard is the easiest place to play on the offensive line. So if they can't find a center, they can always move him in there and play one of the younger guys at guard. Quite frankly, not to go off on a tangent, but I'm very excited to see what Van Wells can do at center, the incoming kid. But I don't have a problem with leaving him at that guard spot. And I think I understand why Devan would do that to be very solid up both guard spots.
It's also worth mentioning that Casey Roddick's not only one of the top leaders of that offensive line group. He's one of the top leaders on this whole team. An early candidate for my best interview award vote in 2022, a great young man to talk to. And he's had 5 different position coaches now. So hopefully for these kids' sake, that revolving door in terms of the coaches, especially on that offensive line, stops with Kyle DeVan, and he's here for a while.
And I think he saved the best for last. With DeVan and his experience inside at center and guard. Personally, I think that's going to really help Casey Roddick. But I'm excited for him. I think he's earned it, and I think he's the most likely postseason candidate for us. I think he's the most likely draft candidate for us right at this point on the team. If you were to nail me down, so I don't fault you one bit for putting him at number 1. I really don't.
Well, I appreciate that. Casey Roddick, 6 on our Top Post Countdown.